Hello. I want to talk about how do you know if a trainer is good? Spoiler alert, it's simply by being reconnected with your dog. I talk about being reconnected with our dogs all the time. It's an important concept because what it does, it actually sets us in a specific emotional state, an emotional state that is filled with joy, warmth, compassion and empathy for our dogs. So you can see how when we're reconnected with our dogs, that is incompatible with wanting to hurt them or harm them physically or emotionally. And so it's really difficult for humans to decipher what trainer is good. But if you're feeling frustrated, you're judging your dog for their undesirable behaviour, you're blaming your dog and you're feeling resentful and frustrated towards them, then you're not going to be reconnected with your dog and you're not going to be feeling empathy and compassion for them. And so this is where humans fall into the trap of bringing somebody into their life who then uses punishment, intimidation and other techniques that cause anxiety and fear in dogs and don't build trust in dogs with humans. So we can bypass all of that simply by reconnecting with our dogs. And to do that, in order to do that, first of all, it's best to do that in situations where it's nice and calm. You're drawing on a memory of your dog where you had a really lovely time with them. You're just watching them doing their thing like Marco and Morty are in the background here. You're just appreciating them for being a species in their own right. And it also means that when you're feeling that joy and warmth and compassion and empathy for your dog, then you're not judging your dog, you're not in a negative emotional state, but you can critically evaluate somebody who calls themselves a trainer based on the language and the methods they use. And let's just consider some of the language that you might hear from particular trainers, or people that call themselves trainers. And I have to remind humans that there's no independent regulatory body that actually investigates whether people or humans that call themselves trainers are actually working according to the current scientific best practices and what the science is actually saying. Some people that call themselves trainers are still using methods that are based on old science, and that includes punishment, intimidation, shock collars, prong collars, corrections, check chains, choke chains. So you can see that when you're reconnected with your dog and you don't want to cause them emotional or physical harm, then you're going to be more sensitive to any suggestions or strategies or techniques or methods that somebody might use that calls themselves a trainer. You're able to detect those subtle nuances and you're able to intuitively understand what methods they're using and exactly what sort of repercussions they're going to be having on your dog and whether they're effective and whether they're actually helping you to be reconnected with your dog. So if you hear somebody use the word correction, then you understand that when you're reconnected with your dog, you're not trying to correct their behaviour because your dog isn't wrong, because you understand that there's a valid reason for your dog's behaviour in everyday situations. So when we understand that, when we're reconnected with our dogs, then we understand that the person that particular person who calls themselves a trainer that might be saying, well, we're going to use a check chain to correct this behaviour. Well, you will be able to understand that that's not a method that is going to create a positive emotional state for your dog. You'll also understand that if they say we're going to use a check chain or a prong collar, because the sensation of the prong on the neck is going to make your dog not want to perform a behaviour, whether that might be pulling on the leash or barking, whatever that might be, and that also applies to shock collars as well. Or they like to call them E-collars, and the E stands for electric. So if you're if you're inviting somebody into your home that is talking about these sorts of things, then they're actually using methods that are punishing your dog, and punishment is intimidation. Punishment causes fear, punishment causes anxiety in dogs, and it doesn't build trust in your dog. So the first thing to do to be reconnected with your dog is pick a quiet, calm environment, sit with your dog nice and quietly, feel that sense of joy, warmth, compassion and empathy, and that unconditional joy, that unconditional love that your dog brings to you without expecting anything in return. And that way you'll actually understand that when your dog's performing a behaviour that you think is undesirable or you don't like, then you're not getting angry with them for it. You're just seeing that behaviour for what it is. It's a behaviour that is being performed at a specific point in time, in a specific situation. But most importantly, reconnecting with your dog is so critical during those times when your dog is performing behaviour that you don't like because they're barking, pulling on the leash, or they're not listening to you. But when you're reconnected with your dog and you take the time to reconnect with them over the course of those quiet times, it's easier to then join that time of reconnection into the times of temporary disconnection that you might be feeling when your dog's performing behaviours you don't like. So when you have the experience of simply reconnecting with your dog in those quiet, calm times, then you're able to extend upon those and lengthen the duration of the time that you're being connected and staying connected with your dog, even though you might be in a particularly challenging situation with respect to the behaviour that your dog's performing. So there's no good trainers, there's no bad trainers. There's only trainers who are humans that are using methods based on their own level of unconsciousness or consciousness. And a trainer, a human that calls themselves a trainer, that is most committed to your success, to be able to live in harmony with your dog, to be able to provide a mutually beneficial and reciprocal relationship between you and your dog based on trust, understanding, empathy and compassion, that is the sort of trainer that you're wanting to choose. And you'll find that when you think about being reconnected with your dog, what you'll actually be choosing is somebody who is mirroring your emotional state with your dog. And that way you'll be able to critically evaluate the methods they use, the language they choose, and know whether they're a good trainer or not. We'll talk again soon.